Hey, it's Nick, live from the Blanket Fort once again. And, as always, I want to preface this by saying that I might smoke on camera. But here's a bag of tobacco. I am one of a few people left in the world that smokes tobacco out of a pipe. And this brings me to, I suppose, the first topic, and probably the main topic that I'm going to talk about. And that's vice. I had a couple of people, let me grab their names, SD Koss and the other person I mentioned in a previous vlog, which was Catastrophe, who both expressed dislike with the fact they thought that I was promoting tobacco use. And I want to say this right now, that I do not promote any vice of any sort. I think it's a very personal thing, and I think it's up to the individual. And that said, I don't always smoke. I will actually be quitting very soon. I've done this many times. The last time I quit for about 3 years. And before that, I would usually smoke during the winter, and then quit for the spring, summer, and fall, so that I could be more active, and I'm planning on doing that once again. But that isn't what matters. What matters is, I think it's anyone's right to not only have a vice, certainly one that is legal, but I think it's also their right to partake in that as long as it isn't hurting anyone else. I definitely do not support anyone who is underage to smoke or drink or do anything that could be considered a vice that is illegal for somebody underage. Once somebody is of age, it is their personal decision to drink or smoke or do anything that would have been considered illegal when they were underage. That's completely up to them. And if somebody is going to do it on a YouTube video, I see nothing wrong with it. The reason why I say that I might smoke is because I do smoke, and I do know that these videos might sometimes go a little bit long, so I don't want to just fake everybody out and just like sit through it and be sitting there thinking that I want to smoke. So I'm gonna smoke. If you don't support it, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to support it. You don't have to like it. You don't even actually have to watch these videos, but I do enjoy people participating in my videos, being part of a discussion, giving me advice, anything. I enjoy that interaction. And overall, I think that I have a positive impact. I said this before, that I've had a lot of views. On this profile alone, Nick Brian Walters, I have had over 30,000 video views. And I'm thankful to everyone out there for watching my videos. The majority of those views have been on video-related things, which I'm going to do some more things of that sort in the future. In particular, one where I adapted an f1.0 lens to a camera system, and people really seem to enjoy that. And actually, I'm planning one in the future. Let me see. Actually, I have one of the lenses. I actually have a few of these lenses. This is an f0.75 lens. And actually, I do have photos taken with this, with the camera that I'm filming from right now. And it actually turned out pretty good. And I've actually even done some video. But I did it over a tiny chat room, just experimenting and showing some of my friends. So that's something that I'm going to do in the future. And that might get a few views. And other than that, in the entire history of different YouTube videos that I've participated in, other profiles that I personally have, I'd say that I've had over 300,000 views to videos. And I think I've made a positive impact. I have also done quite a large number of independent films, even a couple of them that have shown up on cable and such, and I participated in some really powerful documentaries. And let's see, there was two that were circus related. One related to treating animals correctly, and the discussion about whether or not it's okay to adopt elephants whose parents have been killed. Another one about the interaction between different socioeconomic and religious people within a circus troupe for children. And that was an interaction between individuals in Middle Eastern countries and here in the U.S. And that was a very powerful one. And I've also helped make one on the death of somebody in the military services. And so overall, I think I've made a positive impact on the world. Also, one of my latest films was on CFW Walther, who, oh gosh, I didn't have this prepared because I didn't even think that I was going to be speaking about that. It just came up in my mind all of a sudden. He was the first president of the Lutheran Church, and I helped make that. And actually, I was the director of photography on that film. It's actually called Walther. You can see that at waltherfilm.com, I think. So, yeah, I think I've made a positive impact on the world. And yes, I smoke. So if you don't like that, I'm sorry. I don't support that anyone does that or even drinks. And I'll say right now, I do enjoy the occasional beer. So there you go. And in fact, I do a radio show on cactiradio.com nowadays, sometimes on Mondays. Lately, I had a computer problem, and I haven't been able to continue doing that radio program. But every time I do it, I actually have a few beers and sit there and talk and just tell stories about life. And I find it enjoyable, and at the same time, I smoke tobacco. I find that these things are enjoyable for me. I don't try to make it such a horrible, long-time habit that I'm constantly smoking. Like I've said, I have many times stopped smoking for years at a time. And very often, if I still consider myself a smoker, I'll quit for a month or more. And of course, like I've said, I've very often done it throughout the spring, summer, and fall, and then only smoke during winter. And so, I don't know. If you still are not liking me because of that, I'm very sorry. I really wished that you would be a part of my vlogs, which is kind of a new thing that I've been doing. I'll miss you if you don't stick around. And of course, I'm not asking you to support my habit, my vice. So, that said, I am actually going to smoke a little bit, and then I'll move on to another topic that I was going to talk about. So, the other thing that I was going to talk about was I was going to expound on some of the things, which actually now, if you started watching this at the beginning of the video, I probably put an annotation to tell you to skip to now. I was just basically talking about how I smoke, and how I don't support anyone to be a smoker. I personally do smoke sometimes, and that was the meaning of that first almost 10 minutes of nonsense. So now starts the section where I'm expounding on how to save energy, how to conserve, how to be a more efficient individual, And I wrote notes, but I only wrote single word, or well, I've got 5 different things that I'm going to talk about. The first one's transport, the second one's solar, the third one is a compost hot water, the fourth one is refrigeration, and the fifth one is water collection. So I'll start with the first. That's the only notes I have. It's just words, so that I make sure that I cover each of these topics that I forgot to talk about last time. So on transport, I personally, at the moment, I don't own a car. I did have a car. The last car I had was a 1992, I believe, Honda CRX HF, which the HF model was a special model. Most people think of the CRX as a sports car. The HF model was actually a stripped down version of the CRX with much less weight and a very smaller engine and a different transmission, which actually enabled it to have right next to 50 miles per gallon. So that was my main transport for a long time. I've also, through the years, owned quite a number of motorcycles, and I still own 2, which I'm fixing up right now. But my main thing that I use at the moment is a bicycle. And that is a very important thing to incorporate into your life, is a simple bicycle. I actually grab all of my groceries with my bicycle and a backpack. I just ride to the store, get a small amount of groceries, and come back. Me being single, I don't need tons of groceries. So of course, with a family or more people in your household, of course I understand that you would need more than just a bicycle. But also you can actually have trailers, small trailers of course, that you can pull behind a bicycle. And I actually built one myself that I use on occasion. I've even gone to the point, some of the things that I sold on eBay that are larger, that have been actually quite heavy, I've gone ahead and said, you know, I'm going to take it on the bicycle and take it to the post office, and I've done that. One of them, I believe, was 70 pounds, so I pulled 70 pounds to the post office with my bicycle. And that's a very important one. And of course, getting a vehicle that's very gas efficient is a big thing that you can do. And my CRX HF was actually part of a long study into vehicles and what I could buy. I was very interested in the hybrids and such, but they cost so much. I have never owned a new car. And I've owned quite a few cars that are very energy efficient, and I've owned a few that haven't been energy efficient. But the last vehicle that I bought was the HF, and it was part of a few months of study into what I could buy at an affordable price. And there are cars out there like the HF, if you study on it. And actually, for the longest time, I had a sticker on the back of my car that said, I believe it was, I can't remember the name of the website, but maybe it was like carmpg.com or something like that. I don't know, but if you look up, there's a few sites that are specifically dedicated to gas-efficient cars, and you can use things like that to help you find a very energy-efficient car, and one that isn't very expensive. I do understand that some people don't have the money for some of these things, but my HF cost me $2,000, that's US dollars, and I actually had to take a bus all the way to Kansas City from the St. Louis area to actually get my car. So I took quite a trip to get that vehicle. So you might have to do some looking and some travel to get a very energy efficient and inexpensive car, but it's possible. Like I said, a bicycle. Another thing that is very energy efficient and can get you a little bit further, but of course not on the highway, is a scooter. It's a perfectly good way to get a vehicle that's very energy efficient and able to get you, like, say, back and forth to work. If your work is too far to, say, ride a bicycle or walk to. Another option, which you'd have to look at your local laws, is there are engine kits for bicycles. And these can cost as little as, say, around $130. And they're very gas efficient. And these can be in the range of like 100 plus miles per gallon. So that's definitely a good option for somebody. Let's go to the next one, solar. I said a little bit on solar, and I'm talking about solar power, photovoltaics, solar panels and such. And one way, because I do know, I mentioned Sunelec and the fact that they have very cheap laminates. But another way that you can get in the door with solar, just to start experimenting, get yourself comfortable with it, and just have some fun with a little hobby project, is broken solar, oh gosh, what are they called? They're called solar something. But basically, broken solar cells. They're actually like chipped or cracked or half of a piece. They actually still have to be encapsulated within a structure, but you can get them very cheap. Like you can literally sometimes, if you get them in an auction, you can get them as cheap as, say, around anywhere from like 15 to 20 cents a watt. So that can be very cheap. Of course, you do still have to buy things like maybe solder and tabbing wire and glass to encapsulate it in and some stuff. So it'll still come up to, say, maybe 50, 60, 70 cents a watt. But you can start small with these things. Instead of, like, say, with Sunelec, to get in that door of, say, 50 to 60 cents a watt, you do have to buy, like, 10 panels at a lot of cash. With these things, you can, like, say, buy those broken cells for, $25, $30 and have, something to just experiment with and have a little bit of fun with, and it won't cost you a lot of money to just begin to play around with solar. So that's basically all I'm talking about on solar. There's tons of videos on solar, how to build solar systems, how to tab those things, how to encapsulate them. There's tons of videos and websites, and I'll leave it to the people who have already done it very well to explain those things further. I'm just kind of giving you a jumping off point for that. Because of course there's a lot of aspects of that. You've got to tab them, you've got to solder them on, you've got to solder them together in just the right way. You've got to wire everything together. You've got to get like an inverter and a charge controller and batteries, and there's all kinds of aspects. But you can get off the ground and just begin to experiment with that. One of the things I was going to talk about was compost hot water. This is one of the most interesting things that I've seen in the past year or so, and that's where you basically take some tubing. I think the simplest experiment that I saw was just basically garden hose, and these people just chopped down a bunch of just brush material, and then in layers piled up the hose and kept putting more of this brush material on it, and then putting another little bit of the hose, and putting more stuff, and stuff. And then as you do this, you're basically encapsulating that tubing within this composted, or material that is going to begin to compost. And what it does is compost naturally, which some people may already know this and some people may not, but compost actually puts off heat. And it's actually been a long time thing that if you look into composting, it's people always warn you to keep an eye on your compost pile, because if you treat it in just the wrong way, it actually can catch fire. So what these people do is they've actually basically turned it into a hot water heater. They're actually capturing that heat energy that's naturally created by compost to actually heat their water. So that is a very cool thing that is a possible thing for some people, because I understand that some people aren't in areas with lots of just brush material. But it's definitely an option that some people can look into, and it's a fairly quick and just really cool option to do to get some hot water from. Okay, and here refrigeration is the next one that I'm going to talk about, and this is actually a little bit of a funny story, I guess, because I myself am starting to consider not using my refrigerator. Now, basically what happened to me is I've explained about the blanket fort, why I did it, which is to encapsulate a small area that has some of my energy, my main energy uses within this area. So it's basically a blanket fort in a room in my home, to keep some of the heat in, to keep me warm in the winter. And then I still wear some warmer clothing and stuff. And then leave the rest of the house at a cooler temperature, so it stays warm in here, but I'm able in general to keep the heat in the home very low, and I've saved a lot of energy that way. But one thing that some people don't know is whenever the ambient temperature, which is the temperature in a room, is very low, a refrigerator actually uses that temperature in the room to judge if it's going to turn on or not. So what I did, not knowing this at the beginning of the winter, or whenever I first started this experiment, was I did not realize that my refrigerator wasn't going to come on, and I actually wasted a little bit of meat. And so I basically ruined about $30 worth of meat. And since then, I've actually just kind of slowly started to switch over to a vegetarian diet. I have ate vegetarian before. I'm not a strict vegetarian. I never have been I've never been a vegan. But I've been slowly thinking about just going over to that and switching to nothing but canned, preserved, or powdered materials. And so that's really is an option that you can go towards. Like, I actually have never, I don't buy milk. I've always bought powdered milk because I don't use that much milk. And whenever I need it in a recipe, I just use a little bit of that dry milk. And like in my coffee, I just put a little bit of dry powdered milk in it and then pour my coffee in. So at this point, that really the only things that I'm keeping in there are vegetables, cheese, and eggs. That's basically about the only, and like ice cubes. So at this point, I'm starting to think, do I need that? Can I skip some of those things and switch to something else? And I think I can. And that would definitely take away a large part of my energy budget. So that may be an option, that's something that you could look into and think about. Of course, some things, like beer would be horrible to not be able to have it cold, but, whatever. You can't have a cold beer. I mean, you can always just buy, a few beers at the store, 1 or 2 beers at the store, just buy those larger cans, and that, if you're going to have a night where you have 2 or 3 beers, you just buy a couple of cans at the gas station or something, and then you've got cold beer. So, that's definitely something you can do instead of that. But I won't go too far into that, because I guess there's some people that don't like the fact that that I smoke already on camera, so I'm not going to talk too much about beer. The very last one, and gosh, I'm doing a really long one again. I'm good at these long videos, aren't I? The final one is water collection. This is something that can be slightly difficult, but there are certain aspects of your life that can be switched over to water collection very easily, like say watering your garden. You can water it with collected water very easily without having to treat it, without having to filter it, anything of that sort. And you can also definitely flush your toilets with collected water. Of course, you want to make sure that there aren't any twigs and stuff like. Maybe a very light filter, like just maybe a piece of like screen door type material or something, just to get any large chunks, you know, so you don't get stuff caught in your sewer or whatever. But that's definitely a big option, and you can go further. Like I myself have a stream that's very close to my house, only a few hundred feet away. So I'm thinking about using some of that, definitely for watering my garden. And But you can get a rain barrel or just a very large plastic container to capture rainwater. And of course, you can look into active charcoal and sand filters to first filter water, and then past that point, if you were to think about switching over to only your own collected water, you would then, of course, have to boil that water to make sure that it's safe. That's definitely an option. Like I myself, although my water bill is not very large, it is still, you know, $10 or $15 a month. And You know, if I am thinking about, certainly with my gardening season coming up, I'm definitely thinking about trying to do at least one aspect of water collection for my garden, because I know that that small bill that I've had so far is going to go way up if I start watering my garden only with the city water. So I think that's about all the things that I could think of. I covered the 5 different things. Very first thing I try to say is I don't support smoking. I don't support people's vices, but I think it's a personal thing, and I see nothing wrong with somebody having one, but I'm not going to support them in it. And I definitely do not support anyone having a vice who is under the age that it is legal where they are. And I personally see nothing wrong with somebody having a vice and having that in a YouTube video. I had a couple of users, SD Koss and Catastrophe, who both saw it as a very negative thing and thought that I was promoting smoking. And I don't. Just because I do smoke doesn't mean that I promote it. The main reason why I say that I'm going to smoke is just so that people know, and I say that I smoke tobacco because of some of the things connected with smoking a pipe. Sometimes people, if I didn't say that otherwise, people might think that I'm participating in some sort of illicit drug use, which I'm not, and that's why I say that. So, yeah, that's that thing. Transport. Get a energy efficient vehicle. Do a little bit of studying on it. You can even get used cars that get up to around 50 miles per gallon. Like I said, I used to have a CRX HF. Motorcycles, lots of times, are very energy efficient. In fact, what's one of the very energy efficient ones, although I don't like the whole sitting forward on motorcycles, I like to sit back. I know that the 250 Ninja gets something in the range of like 75 miles per gallon or something like that. That's pretty amazing. But a scooter or a moped is a very good option, and by moped, of course, there aren't very many actual mopeds that are still made, but they make engine kits for bicycles that you can like put on a 10-speed, and then those get 100 plus miles per gallon. I said solar. You can get broken solar cells off eBay very cheap and start to experiment with solar. A lot of times they're not a long-term option, but they're definitely a way that you can get in the door for a very small amount of money just to begin experimenting and becoming comfortable with learning and just knowing about solar. And it can just be a fun project that doesn't cost too much. Because you can get like you can get it as cheap as, like, say, for 100 watts, the very cheapest. I mean, if you really sneak in there and nobody bids against you on eBay, you can get, like, say, 70 to 100 watts worth of broken solar cells for like 15 to 20 bucks. So that can be a really cool thing. It's, you know, 15, 20 bucks. It can be fun just to play with that. Then compost hot water was one where I said you can get like brush material and put hose inside of compost, and then that will actually generate heat when you pump that water through there. Get hot water out the other side. That's a pretty cool thing. Refrigeration, you can, I know this isn't for everybody, but between canned, preserved, and powdered things, you actually can get rid of a refrigerator, and that's something that uses a lot of electricity. Then finally, water collection is a big thing, certainly if you have a garden. Not using your city water and collecting into a rain barrel off your roof, or if you have a stream nearby, using that for your garden, and also definitely for flushing toilets. And if you go the really far extreme, you can get a active charcoal and sand filter, and filter water and then boil it and actually consume that instead of using city water. So I think that ends the video. We're at like 31 minutes. Gosh, I really go long on these ones that involve energy conservation. So yeah, I on my sum up, I don't think I mentioned a bicycle, did I? Because I myself, I use a bicycle as my main transport. So it's a very cool, very big option there. So I think that ends our video. So, in the name of my favorite musical YouTube artist, the ukulele, push the button.